Hello students, welcome to another week of summer school. We are on week 3, which means that you are 3/4 of the way there after you finish this week. This week we're going to be reading a story called A Good Man is Hard to Find by Flannery O'Connor. It's a really good story. I think y'all will like it. There's kind of like a crazy ending, those are my favorite types of stories. It's a little bit funny, and I would say there's like suspense in it as well. So I'm going to go over the weekly schedule with you really quickly, and then we're going to go over the vocabulary words for this week. So Monday, today, you need to begin the vocabulary practice. So it's not going to be due until Thursday, but I do expect you to start it today. When I take attendance, if I see that you haven't started it, you could be marked absent, or you will be marked absent. So keep in mind that some of y'all have been talking to me, oh, Miss, you marked me absent. Well, if you don't do the work on time, I can't, this isn't like an in-class summer school where I'm going to see your face. So I have to base it solely on who turned in the work from the day before. So if you don't turn it in, then I can't mark you present. So you need to start the vocab practice today, and we're going to go over the schedule, and you'll watch this video. Tomorrow on Tuesday, you will have a video lesson over compound sentences. You need to watch the video and then work on complete the no reading practice. So the no reading practice is due Tuesday night at midnight. That will be a grade. In the video, besides just going over the content on Tuesday for no reading, we will also discuss the author for the short story that we will be reading this week. Wednesday, your assignment is to read the story, A Good Man is Hard to Find. I will put the link on the hub. We're going to talk about the use of race in the short story. We're going to talk about symbolism and figurative language that we see in the story. And so you'll need to watch that video and do that reading and the reading quiz. That will be on Wednesday. And then Thursday, we'll have a video lesson over the themes from the story, Good Man is Hard to Find. And then you'll have the vocabulary quiz over the words from the story. And then you'll also have a no reading quiz to assess your mastery of the practice that we went over on Tuesday. Okay, so that's our week. That's what we're looking like. Today we're going to go ahead and go over the vocabulary words. And like I said, you need to start this practice. You'll have until Thursday to get it finished. It will be a grade, but you do need to start it today. So I need to see that you've checked in and have some progress on these words. So these words are all from the story, A Good Man is Hard to Find. The first word is yodel, which the definition says a song-like cry in which the voice fluctuates rapidly. I could yodel for you as an example, but it would be horrible, so I'm not going to. It's basically like, yodel hee-hoo. It's kind of like that. So it's a weird sort of singing. I think it's like German or Swiss in origin, but it's it's like a weird, like, again, I don't want to do it. So that's not the word number 1. Number 2 is a valise, which is a small overnight bag for short trips. It's sort of an old-fashioned word. We don't hear that word a lot anymore, but it's like a small suitcase that you might take if you were going away for just a weekend. Word number 3 is asphyxiate. We see this word when people are talking about crime scenes. Asphyxiate is to suffocate someone. Like if you were to choke them and block their air passage, then the person died of asphyxiation. So usually it's like a choking. It's the result of a choking or strangling, something like that. And you can see that when a crime scene investigator does an autopsy, they might say, oh, this person died of asphyxiation. Number 4, penitentiary, is a pretty easy word. It just means like a correctional facility or a jail. So we still have state penitentiaries. That means it's just the jail for people who've been convicted of the crime. Number 5 is a ditch, which is a long, narrow I don't want to say tunnel. It's like a dug out area on the side of a road. So ditch, you know, if you're driving on the road and then next to the road there's like lower ground and it's like there's no grass and it's like a hole that's long and skinny, that would be a ditch. Number 6, undertaker. The word undertaker is the person who runs a funeral home. So they might be the person who makes the bodies ready for the funeral, but they're running the business and they deal with the bodies and the coffins, and it's kind of like a creepy job, but it's an important job. Number 7 is the word lousy, which means something's very bad. Like if you're like, I'm a lousy swimmer, it means that I'm probably gonna drown because I'm not very good at it. That's a pretty easy word. Number 8 is emboss. Emboss, it says the definition is raise in a relief, which to you probably doesn't mean a whole lot. It's basically like if you have a really fancy envelope or a fancy diploma and part of the font is raised and it looks like nicer. It might be like shiny gold letters that are raised from the paper. That's when something is embossed. So it's like, instead of it just being a flat paper, it's like slightly raised, and we would usually use this to talk about like stationery or envelopes or something like that. Number 9 is a predicament. A predicament is an unpleasant or difficult situation. Like I'm in a certain predicament, I'm in a problem. For example, in the story, there's a car accident and they don't have cell phones because it was a long time ago, and so that's a predicament. It's like a sticky situation. Number 10 is arbor, a framework that supports climbing plants. So a synonym for the word arbor might be a trellis. I grow cucumbers in my backyard, so I have like a fence that the cucumber vines kind of like grow up, and they use it to cling on to. So some arbors might be V-shaped, triangle-shaped, or it might be more of like a lattice, like with like wood going horizontally and vertically. But you're gonna see vines or ivy growing on arbor. Stocky is someone who is short and wide, having a short and solid frame or stature. So someone who's like, you know, stocky, like it's usually used to describe men, but not always. A trellis, I used that word earlier when I was talking. A trellis is lattice work used to support climbing plants. So it's just like how I said my cucumber vines have to have something to grow on. So a trellis is like zigzag, crisscrossed wood so that the climbing vines have something to hold on to. A brim is the top of a vessel. So you might say the brim of my hat, or it's filled to the brim. It's basically like if you have a cup and the water's all the way to the top, it's filled to the brim. So it's the edge. A plantation is an estate where cash crops are grown on a large scale. So it's not just a farm. A farm might be smaller. A plantation is going to be like a big operation that makes a lot of money. But we have associations with the word plantation. Usually a plantation is something that is from pre-Civil War in the South. Typically people associate plantations as having slaves, enslaved people working on them. And so in the South, there might be these wonderful plantation homes, like these beautiful mansions where the house itself is very pretty and historical, but there's also like this dark side to plantations because yeah, it looks all wealthy and wonderful and beautiful, but how do you think that wealth was acquired in the pre-Civil War South? It would be because of slaves picking or growing, working in the fields of the plantation. So the word plantation, it has a definition, which means just like a really big farm that makes a lot of money, but there's all these associations with the word, negative associations because of the historical use of the word. Number 15 is stallion, which would mean a large adult male horse, usually used for breeding. So it's like a, you know, gonna be a daddy horse that you would use to make more horses. A gulch is very similar to the word ditch. It's a narrow gorge or ravine cut by a stream. So it's like a ditch, but probably with a stream or creek in the middle, either along a road, or like you might look up and see a gulch, which is like a creek bed that's going to be lower. You would have to hike down to it. The word kerchief is a square, fold, or triangle of fabric worn over your head, sort of like a bonnet, but it's more like a bandana that you would tie over your head back in the day, or I guess today, to cover, usually worn by a woman, and to cover your hair. The word jaunty is having cheerful, lively, or self-confident air. It's kind of like, yeah, this is fun. Usually someone who is pretty pleasant natured, and like it says, cheerful is a very simple word. Number 19 is parched, which is the word meaning that something is dried out due to heat or sunlight. So like if you're very, very thirsty because you're outside and it's Texas summer and you're like, oh, I'm parched, I need some water. Or plants might be parched because they're starting to shrivel up. So it's when something is like excessively dried out from heat to the point where it's being damaged. Number 20 is to sprint, which is to run very fast. I think we know that word. Number 21 is buggy. So you might think it has something to do with bugs, but actually it's like an old-fashioned carriage. So a buggy would be like horses would be pulling it, and you know, you'd have like a little seat for the person driving the buggy, and then probably 1 or 2 seats for other people with small little carriage. 22 is the word mumble, which would be to talk indistinctly and quietly, to where the person listening can't really understand. Some people mumble and then they're talking like this, and they're not really moving their mouth and you can't hear them. That's mumbling. 23 is outskirts, which is like you have the center of town and then you have the outskirts of town, which is like it's sort of close to the town, but it's like the farthest area away from it. So you have like Houston, and then outside of that you have suburbs like Katy or Sugar Land, and then outside of that you might have like the outskirts of town. So it's like the part of the edge where the towns are connected or touching the rural areas. So more like underdeveloped, more like rural or farming or whatever, versus like city, which would be more like built up. The word dilate means to become wider. Like if you go to the eye doctor, they might dilate your pupils, which means like make your pupils bigger so that they can check your eyes. And then the last word is 25, gospel. So gospel is a written body of teachings accepted by a religious group. So in Christianity, there is the gospel, which is part of the Bible, or other religions might have other part of texts that are, it's like, this is like the truth. This is the most important part of our religion. That's the gospel. And in the context of the story, it was used as a gospel to talk about a gospel singer, which gospel music is a genre of music sung in churches. Usually it's very like soulful and might be kind of related to like blues or jazz, but it's all about Christianity, and there's a whole genre of gospel singers and gospel music and gospel concerts that some people don't even know exist. And so the song is talking, or the story is talking about gospel songs. Okay. Whew, so that was a lot. So those are 25 words. Make sure you get the practice done, and that's all I have for you today. I hope that you have a wonderful Monday, and please email me if you have any questions at all. Okay, bye.